It's assembly time for our designer series diamond bin with face trim. Here is an example of our prime mahogany wood with a classic mahogany stain. Very beautiful, all ready to be assembled. We start by building the outside box first and then insert all the boards. The first step is to attach the bottom, top, and sides together with screws. Our install manager Joe prefers us to start with a nail gun to make the tightest fit possible. He likes to do this extra step to make sure they're flush. It's up to you if you want to nail them in or simply proceed with screwing them together. We want to show you all the possible ways of assembling these diamond bins. When you fit the two boards together, try and make a nice tight fit to lock it in as tight as you can. When we later add face trim, it's incredibly important that all the dimensions are matching. So spending extra time to get it right will pay off in the long run. The box is now nailed in. The two sides are identical, as is the top and the bottom. The boards are all pre-drilled for screws. Grab your cordless drill and use it to insert the screws and put them together. Here's a close-up of what it looks like and how easy it is to insert the screw and put it into the other board. The next step is to insert half of the interlock boards into termination blocks. Notice the termination blocks on the side. One side is angled while the other side is straight. You start off by inserting half of your boards. Do it with the notches pointing upward. Each two pieces are the same. The smaller ones go on the outside, the bigger ones in the middle. Then, take the other half and fit them in on top. It's an extremely snug fit. It has to be a square cut on the board, and you may need to apply some pressure to the sides to get it to fit in. Let's watch for a minute so you can see how you may need to wiggle those sides to get that board in correctly. This is one reason why your tight fit is just so important. Again, the smaller ones go on the outside with the bigger boards on the inside. Let's watch Joe put in the rest of the boards so you can see how everything goes. Next, put the 4 tiny boards into each of the 4 corners. It should be fairly easy to slide them down in each section. Now we measure. The instructions say to measure the top, middle, and bottom of the diamond bin to prevent gaps and for the trim. All 3 must equal 34 inches. Be very sure to maintain that 34 inches all the way up and down the bin. Our installer recommends squaring it up. Joe is measuring diagonally, 79 5/8. Then measure each side. The side should again be 34 inches. If it does not equal the proper amounts, you can clamp the wood across. In this video, we are 1/8 of an inch off. Our installer will need to clamp it. We're showing this in case it happens to you. Once you're square, the next step is to pull the small boards up flush and then nail them in to be secure. Nail the boards to the termination block around everywhere twice. That's going to ensure it will stay at the clamped off dimension that our installer put it at. The whole diamond bin will stay together securely. Remember, you can always use wood putty or a wood stick to cover any nail holes you make and sand them down to appear flawless. Next is where you nail in the boards on the front-facing bins to keep them secure. See how he's angling in those nails to be sure the diamond bin will be secure? This will adhere to the 34 inches that it must maintain through the top, middle, and bottom of the bin as he's clamping it. We take another moment to measure after we've removed the clamp, securing the dimensions, and success! It all measures up. It's time to attach the perimeter trim. These are pre-cut. Our installer recommends you decide on which end is the bottom of your diamond bin and install the perimeter trim there first. That way, if anything's wrong with the trim, the top can be moved up a little bit to accommodate. He takes some time and nails in every 12 to 16 inches. He personally has a specific way of nailing them in with double nails at the termination blocks and another on the sides and then the ends. View your assembly manual for more details, but with nails every 12 to 16 inches, that diamond bin should be secure. Let's talk about face trim. With the perimeter added, feel free to stop there. However, in this assembly video as an added bonus, we will go over how a professional installs face trim for those that are looking for even bolder look. Just a note, you do need some advanced carpentry skills to install this portion. Keep the bin on the floor. The pieces of face trim go with the interlock boards. First, the notches are facing up. The notches will match the dados on the interlock boards. Just measure at this point. Put out all your trim and exchange them around so you have everything covered and you won't have a bad side facing up. Our installer likes to use the cardboard from the packaging to rub off any scratches or dirt. Face trim boards are sent approximately 3 inches long on either end to be cut to fit on site by a contractor. Once you have a good layout, snug the boards into each other for a good fit. You just need to jiggle them around a bit until they fit together. The small boards go in the corners. An important note is you have to center the trim over the boards. He is measuring each side. It's about 3/8 on either side and each trim piece should be centered. This step may take some time. The entire face trim will keep moving around so you have to play with it constantly. Once you get it right, Joe advises you to put a tack or a clamp to keep the ones you've marked correct stable. Once you have it centered, You take a pencil and mark it underneath. Joe is numbering each board to match them up later, with arrows in the directions they need to point. This way, after he cuts them, he'll know exactly where they go. Here's a close-up of the numbers that he's writing down, and if you know which end is the bottom, the arrows will make sense. After you've removed the trim and cut the boards, you know where to replace them. Before you move anything, measure your 4 corners with your wood pieces. Again, they all have to match, so measure them from each trim board so you can cut them so they fit perfectly. Be careful not to touch or move your face trim after you marked it. A small 23 gauge nail, tacking, or clamping the pieces will help keep it stable. Be sure to mark each board around the perimeter carefully to keep that center position. When you're satisfied with the alignment mark at the point where they intersect, then you cut. Here we are in the factory. We are using a miter saw to cut the trim pieces where he marked them. He had it set at a 45-degree angle. The miter saw is set up to measure that already, so be sure you set yours correctly. You can use a hand miter box, and that would give you the same results, but take a little longer. An important note, if you happen to miter face trim incorrectly, Wine Cellar Innovations will replace free of charge. Now that we're done trimming, we came back up to put on all that face trim and line up the bottom trim pieces. This is where you want to match up your numbers. Your top and bottom trim should have your carefully written numbers on each side, with your arrows pointing in the directions you place them. This is where you cross your fingers that you measured and cut correctly. Remember to call us if you made any mistakes. Fit in your smaller corner pieces last. You also want to make sure that your trim is firmly secured and snug before you start nailing. This is where a mallet may come in handy. The smaller wood boards need to be nailed in at an angle from the bottom, so just be sure to get in there, angle it, and nail it in. Here, let's look at a different angle. Shoot the nails in on either side. And continue with the rest of the boards. Be sure to nail in the sides of every board and nail in the front. Let's show how Joe is using the nail gun to quickly do the rest of the diamond bin face trim. He is experienced and fast. After using the nail gun for the sides of the face trim and boards, he's now doing the middle face trim on each section. Here we have the whole diamond bin completed, which means it's time to stand it up on the selected bottom of the rack, which he made sure was completely flush. Let's take a look. Now that we have the full diamond bin standing up, we need to do some nailing in the back. Be sure to put a few nails into each of the interlocking shelves. He's again using the nail gun at an angle. This will ensure that the shelves won't wiggle about once it's completely finished. Let me explain about choosing to do base and crown molding. The solid diamond bin is next to the Designer Series 5-column rack. You can see the top of the racks have a spacer bar, but it's missing at the top of the diamond bin. We have a crown support that you can add that will match the rest of the racking if you want the racking to flow through the room. The crown support comes standard, which you nail in using your nail gun and leaves you with consistent racking through your wall. The final step is securing this rack to the wall. It's one of the most important steps as the rack has the possibility of shifting from side to side. Use the provided brackets in place at the top of your diamond bin. Check your wall first and find where your studs are. This will help in the security of the brackets. Be sure the brackets are flush with the back of the rack and screw into the wood. Once you're done screwing into the wood, take a moment to mark on the wall where you'll be creating your anchors. Pull your rack back out so you have room to create your anchors. I'll take this moment to remind you that you should be sure your baseboards are removed so your rack is completely flush against the wall. You may need a shim or a piece of wood underneath the rack on the floor. Go ahead and add in those anchors. Push them into the wall or use a mallet, and then move the rack back to the wall in preparation to screw in your brackets. Once the rack is moved to your satisfaction, simply use your drill and screw in the final screws to secure the rack to the wall. Our installation is now completed. But one last important note. If you break or damage any of the parts during assembly, don't despair. We offer free replacement parts during the assembly process. Just give us a call and we'll get you your replacement part out right away. Just another great service provided to you by Wine Cellar Innovations, where the customer's needs always come first.